Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place that takes, those mountains of research and boils them down into practical tools you can actually use.
And today, we're tackling something huge, something that affects so many of us: chronic anxiety.
Yeah, it's really pervasive, isn't it? And honestly, a lot of the modern advice, while maybe helpful short term, sometimes feels a bit incomplete.
Right. Like, just breathe or think positive. It can feel like putting a bandage on something that needs deeper work. But what if a really solid, evidence-backed way to change your whole relationship with anxiety was figured out like 2,000 years ago?
Exactly. That's where our sources take us today, straight into ancient Stoicism. Now, I know when people hear Stoic, they often think emotionless, like being a rock.
That's the common picture, yeah. Stone-faced, indifferent. But the real Stoic philosophers, they weren't aiming for emotional numbness at all. Their goal was actually pretty specific. Get rid of the negative, destructive emotions, but keep and even cultivate the positive ones.
Okay, that difference is crucial. So this deep dive isn't about becoming unfeeling.
Not at all. Our goal here is to unpack how these core Stoic ideas, things like the dichotomy of control, understanding emotions as judgments, focusing on what you can do right now, how these can fundamentally shift the way you experience anxiety, kind of pull the rug out from under it.
And it's not just ancient history. What's fascinating, and what our sources really highlight, is the direct line from these thinkers to modern psychology.
Oh, absolutely. Thinkers like Augustin Descartes,
Yeah.
they engage with these ideas. But the really direct link for our topic today is, well, it's the bedrock of cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT.
You mean the therapy lots of people use for anxiety right now?
Precisely. Albert Ellis, who developed REBT back in the 50s, rational motive behavior therapy, which is kind of the precursor to CBT, he straight up said Epictetus was a major influence. He saw that the Stoics already had the map.
The map showing that it's not the event that causes distress, but our beliefs about the event.
That's the core insight. Your judgments, your interpretations. Have you ever done something like challenge an automatic negative thought or fill out a thought record? You're basically using techniques honed by guys like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus centuries ago. So this isn't just philosophy. It's a really practical toolkit we're looking at.
Okay, so let's tackle that main misunderstanding head on. The dictionary definition of Stoic: indifferent to joy, grief, pleasure, pain. That sounds, well, frankly, miserable, like apathy.
It does sound awful, and it's totally not what uppercase S Stoicism was about. The philosophers were aiming for apathy. They wanted apatheia, which sounds similar, but it means freedom from the negative passions, the pathy.
Pathy, what falls under that?
Those are the irrational, excessive reactions. Think intense distress, paralyzing fear, rage, uncontrollable cravings, the kind of stuff that hijacks your reason.
So not feeling nothing, but feeling the right things. Getting rid of the destructive stuff.
Exactly. And they weren't just about subtraction. They actively cultivated what they called eupatheia, the good, rational emotions.
Okay, like what?
Well, instead of anxiety, which is a type of fear, apathy, they aim for eulabia, which is more like rational caution, appropriate carefulness.
Makes sense.
And instead of, say, desperate craving for something external, they focused on boulesis, a rational wish or intention aimed at virtue, at doing the right thing.
And happiness, pleasure.
Instead of chasing fleeting, intense pleasure, hedona, they valued characters, a deep, stable kind of joy or contentment that comes from your own character, your internal state, not from external stuff.
That whole reframing changes everything. It suggests they were after a really rich emotional life, just one that wasn't constantly getting knocked around by things outside their control. So how did they actually teach someone to get there?
Epictetus, who was a brilliant teacher, laid out this really clear framework. 3 core disciplines. Think of it like a curriculum for living well, for living, as they said, according to nature.
Okay, 3 disciplines. What's the first one?
The discipline of desire. And this hits anxiety right where it lives, because so much anxiety comes from wanting things we just can't guarantee.
Like wanting someone to like you back, or wanting a project to succeed without any hitches.
Exactly. This discipline teaches you what's truly worth wanting and what's best to avoid wanting. It's about where you direct your energy, your time, your focus. If you set your heart on something totally external, totally outside your control, well, you're basically signing up for frustration.
Yeah.
And anxiety.
But hang on, if I stop wanting, say, career success or financial security, because those are external, doesn't that make me passive? Like, why would I even try in the modern world?
That's a really common and important question. The Stoics would say you're aiming your desire at the wrong target. You absolutely still act. You strive. You work hard. But you shift your desire from the external result, the promotion, the exact amount of money, to the internal action.
Meaning desiring to do your best,
Right.
to act with integrity.
Precisely. Desire the excellence of your effort, the quality of your work, the integrity you bring to it. That desire is entirely within your control. So you're not passive at all. You're fully engaged, maybe even more engaged, but your emotional well-being isn't dependent on the outcome anymore.
That's subtle, but huge. Okay, what's the second discipline?
The discipline of action. This one is all about how we interact with other people, our social roles, our duties, acting with justice, fairness, kindness, cooperation. For the Stoics, virtue wasn't just an internal state. It had to be expressed in how you treat others.
So it grounds the philosophy in the real world, in ethics. It's not just navel-gazing.
Definitely not. And the third one ties it all together internally. The discipline of assent.
Assent,
Yeah.
like agreeing to something.
Exactly. This is about managing your judgments. Life throws things at you, someone cuts you off in traffic, you get bad news. An initial thought or impression pops into your head. The discipline of assent is about training yourself to pause, examine that impression, and decide whether to agree with it, whether to assent to the judgment it contains.
Like, is this really a catastrophe or is it just an inconvenience?
Precisely. It's the gatekeeper for your thoughts. If anxiety starts with those faulty judgments, this is terrible, I can't handle this. This discipline is where you learn to challenge that initial thought and say, hold on, is that actually true? Do I consent to this belief?
Okay, that leads us perfectly into what many consider the cornerstone of Stoic anxiety management, the dichotomy of control. Epictetus lays it out so simply. Some things are up to us, some things aren't. Why is just making that distinction so powerful against chronic worry?
Because chronic worry is essentially wasted mental energy, isn't it? It's fixating on outcomes, on variables that are fundamentally outside our complete control. This dichotomy gives you an immediate way to sort things out. Draw a line.
What goes on which side of the line?
Epictetus was really clear.
Mhm.
If you don't get this distinction right, you're doomed to distress. You'll constantly confuse what you can control with what you can't.
But it's not always black and white, is it? The sources mention avoiding a false dichotomy. It's not just 100% control versus 0% control for everything.
That's a crucial refinement, yes. Most things in life aren't like that. Your health, for instance, or a relationship, or launching a product. You have some influence, maybe even significant influence, but you don't have total control. Other factors are always at play.
Right, so the Stoic move isn't to just give up on those things because you don't have 100% control.
Not at all. It's about recognizing where that absolute 100% control actually resides and pouring your primary energy and focus there.
Okay, so where is that absolute control? What's truly undeniably up to us no matter what?
This is where they introduce the concept of volition, or the Greek term prohairesis. Think of it as your core reasoning faculty, your character, your capacity to make judgments and choices.
So my thoughts, my intentions, my decisions about how to act.
Your judgments, your goals, your desires, your assent, these internal mental states. Epictetus argued these are completely autonomous. They're entirely within your power, your self-government. Your attitude, the effort you put in, how you choose to respond, that's yours. Completely yours. Even if you're literally in chains like he was for a time.
Wow. That's a powerful idea. That contrast between this inner freedom that anyone can access and the fact that our bodies, our possessions, our reputation, they're always vulnerable.
It's the core of his message, really. That's your impregnable fortress. Let's take that job interview example again. We worry endlessly. Did they like me? Will I get the offer? Is someone else better qualified? All that worry is focused on externals, things outside our prohairesis.
So applying the dichotomy means shifting focus.
Right. What is 100% up to you? How well you prepare, how professional you conduct yourself, the honesty and integrity of your answers, your attitude during the interview. You can commit entirely to bringing your best self to that situation.
And the outcome, whether you get the job.
That's external. It depends on the interviewer's mood, the company's budget, who else applied, countless things you don't control. If you tie your sense of success and peace of mind only to your volition, the quality of your preparation and performance, then the external outcome doesn't have the power to cause you distress. It's just information.
Okay, I get the logic, but let me push back here because this is where it can sound detached. If I lose my job due to, say, an economic downturn, totally external, how does focusing on my internal volition pay the rent? Isn't this a philosophy for people who can afford not to worry about external circumstances?
That's a really fair and critical point. The Stoics weren't naive about hardship. They acknowledged that things like health, wealth, reputation are preferred indifferents. We naturally prefer them. It's better to be healthy than sick.
Right.
But crucially, they insisted these things have no inherent moral value. They don't make you a good or bad person. Your virtue does. So the goal isn't to pretend financial ruin doesn't matter. It's to prevent financial ruin from destroying your character, your inner core.
So the harm isn't the event itself, but judging the event as an evil that defines you.
Precisely. The moment you judge that external loss as a fundamental evil, that's when you're truly harmed, according to them. Seneca, who was incredibly wealthy, and Epictetus, who started life as a slave, both hammered this home. You essentially hand over your happiness to external forces, to fortune.
Which guarantees frustration because fortune is unpredictable.
Absolutely. Seneca wrote a lot about this. He argued the path to real freedom, real tranquility, is through a disregard of fortune. Not ignoring reality, but recognizing that chasing externals, more money, more fame, perfect health, is a trap. They'll never truly satisfy.
Because if they could, they already would have.
Right. The real satisfaction, Seneca argued, comes from asking for nothing externally, from cultivating an inner self-sufficiency that's independent of what fortune throws your way. That independence is freedom from anxiety.
Okay, so if external events aren't the direct cause of anxiety, but it's our reaction, our judgment, we need to dig into how the Stoics saw emotions working. They didn't see them as these mysterious forces, right? More like errors in thinking.
Exactly. They were really early cognitive theorists, in a way. They saw those negative emotions, the pathy, as the result of faulty judgments, basically making a mistake in how you see the world.
What kind of mistake?
The core mistake is believing that external things, money, health, reputation, other people's opinions, or genuine goods or evils. The only true good for a Stoic is virtue, your own excellent state of character, your volition. The only true evil is vice, a corrupted character. Everything else is indifferent.
Indifferent, okay. But anxiety feels so physical, that tightness in the chest, the racing heart. How did they account for that visceral feeling?
They had a fascinating psychophysical model. They believed the soul or mind was made of a fine, sort of airy substance called pneuma, like a vital breath or spirit. And negative emotions were seen as actual physical alterations of this pneuma.
So distress or grief wasn't just a sad thought.
No, they defined it literally as a contraction of the psyche, a shrinking or tightening, and what caused it. A fresh critiquing that immediate, strong conviction that something bad is present right now, and that contracting is the appropriate response. It maps surprisingly well onto how we describe feeling overwhelmed or crushed by anxiety today.
Wow. And fear, is that the opposite movement?
Sort of. Fear was defined as a withdrawing of the psyche, a pulling back that's disobedient to reason. It's caused by believing that some evil is coming, it's in the future. So, it's also a physical retraction, driven by that judgment of impending harm.
Okay, but what about that immediate jolt? Like if a car suddenly swerves towards me, my heart pounds instantly. Is that already a faulty judgment? Am I failing the Stoic test right there?
Not necessarily. This is where Seneca makes a really useful distinction. He talks about first movements. These are the involuntary physiological reactions, the startle response, going pale, heart racing, sweating. They're natural reflexes, pre-rational.
So they're not emotions yet.
Exactly. They're just the body's automatic alarm system. They only become the full-blown emotion of fear or panic when your mind assents to the judgment that goes with it. A judgment like, this is catastrophic, I'm going to die, I need to freak out.
So that initial physical response happens, but the crucial step is whether I mentally agree with the interpretation that this is an unbearable evil.
That's the moment of power. Withholding that assent. This is why Epictetus could say something that sounds so radical. No one will harm you without your consent. You will only be harmed when you think you are harmed.
The harm isn't the external event, it's the internal judgment that it's harmful to your core self.
Precisely. And Marcus Aurelius just cuts right through to the solution, doesn't he? He basically says,
Discard the judgment and you'll be saved. Who then is stopping you from discarding it? It sounds so simple yet so hard in the moment.
it takes practice, for sure. That's why the discipline of assent is a discipline. But it highlights that the power lies within your own mind.
Okay, but a lot of chronic anxiety isn't about immediate threats. It's that constant, low-level hum about the future. Seneca nailed this. The life of folly is empty of gratitude, full of anxiety. It is focused wholly on the future. How do we deal with anticipating bad things without letting that worry just consume the present?
This brings us to another key Stoic practice, premeditation of evils, or premeditatio malorum, which sounds grim, doesn't it?
Yeah, sounds like deliberately making yourself miserable thinking about bad stuff.
Right. But that's not the goal. It's not about morbid worrying. It's a strategic exercise to strip future fears of their power before they happen.
How does that work without just triggering anxiety? If I sit down and think about, say, losing my health or a loved one,
Yeah.
isn't that just going to make me anxious right now? What's the technique?
The key is doing it rationally, calmly, and systematically, not emotionally wallowing. Seneca advised thinking about feared events often, until they become familiar, less shocking.
So, okay, step one, identify a specific fear. Let's say fear of public speaking failure.
Okay. Step 2, visualize it happening. Imagine yourself on stage, forgetting your words, people looking bored. Feel that initial discomfort, but then critically, step 3, analyze the actual consequences rationally. Ask, okay, if this happens, what's the worst outcome? And even then, what is still within my control?
Well, I'd be embarrassed. Maybe my reputation takes a small hit, but
Right.
I could still learn from it. My ability to prepare for the next speech, my fundamental character, my relationships, those aren't destroyed.
Exactly. You realize that even in the worst case, your core self, your volition, remains intact. You can still choose how to respond, how to learn, how to maintain your integrity. Seneca pointed out that misfortune hits hardest those who don't expect it. By mentally rehearsing adversity, you reduce its shock value, you build resilience. And often, you realize the feared outcome isn't nearly as catastrophic as your anxiety was painting it.
So it's like an inoculation. You expose yourself to a small, controlled dose of the fear in your mind to build immunity against the real thing. It optimizes the present by preparing you for the future. All right, so we've got the theory down. Anxiety stems from faulty judgments about externals. We know the core tool. Focus on what's truly up to us, our volition. Now let's get practical. How do we apply this day to day? A big piece seems to be anchoring in the present moment.
Absolutely. Marcus Aurelius gives such great direct advice here. He basically says, don't get crushed by thinking about your whole life all at once, or all the bad things that might happen down the road.
Yeah, he says, stay focused on the present situation and ask yourself why it's so unbearable and can't be survived.
It pulls you right back from that future-tripping anxiety spiral. The present is the only place you actually have agency, the only place you can exercise your volition and make a choice.
But what if the present situation is genuinely difficult,
Yeah.
painful, full of adversity? How do we stop that immediate hardship from just triggering the distress we're trying to avoid?
Here comes another radical Stoic idea. Welcome adversity. Don't just tolerate it. See it as an opportunity. Because remember, external events, even painful ones, are indifferent in terms of your moral character. They aren't truly bad.
So instead of seeing adversity as something terrible, see it as what? A training ground.
Exactly. Marcus Aurelius called it turning the obstacle upside down.
Yeah.
The difficulty itself becomes the raw material for practicing virtue.
Like an alchemist turning lead into gold.
That's a great analogy. Seneca used the image of a wrestler. A wrestler needs strong opponents to test and build their skill, right?
Yeah.
You can't become strong by only wrestling beginners.
True.
Adversity is the opponent that tests your patience, your courage, your resilience, your ingenuity. If your goal shifts from avoiding difficulty to responding virtuously to difficulty, then the obstacle actually helps you achieve your goal. The problem becomes the path.
Wow. Okay, so the focus is entirely on your response, your action in the face of the challenge, not on whether you win against the external problem.
Precisely. This connects directly back to that effort versus outcome distinction. It's about the quality of your action.
Epictetus had those analogies for this, didn't he? The actor and the archer.
Yeah, great illustrations. The actor, you don't choose your role in the play of life. Maybe it's starring role, maybe a bit part, maybe it's tragic, maybe comic. You don't choose how long the play lasts. Your job is just to play the role you've been given excellently, with skill and commitment. The quality of your performance is what matters. That's internal. The reviews, the applause, those are external.
And the archer.
The archer does everything in their power to shoot well. Stance, draw, aim, release. That's the action, that's virtue, that's up to them. But once the arrow leaves the bow,
Right.
a sudden gust of wind might blow it off course.
Right, the wind is external. You don't control the wind.
So your satisfaction, your sense of accomplishment, your peace of mind must come from the excellence of the shot, the effort, not whether it hits the exact bullseye. Worrying about the wind before you even shoot is just pointless anxiety.
Okay, so we manage our judgments, we focus on virtuous action in the present, even using obstacles as fuel. What's the final piece to keep this system running? It seems like you'd need constant self-awareness.
Yeah, you absolutely do. And that brings us to Marcus Aurelius again. With his practice of rigorous self-scrutiny, he was constantly checking in with himself, like tending a garden, pulling out the weeds of faulty judgment or unvirtuous impulses.
How did he do that? Just randomly checking in?
He seemed to have a routine, maybe morning and evening reflection, but also asking himself throughout the day these really pointed questions.
Like what? Can you give some examples?
Things like,
Mm.
what use am I making of my soul right now? Or more specifically, am I behaving like a frightened animal or a tyrant or just passively like a sheep? Or am I using my reason, acting like the rational social being I'm meant to be? It's like having an internal coach constantly pushing you towards your best self.
That's intense. It's like a continuous performance review for your character.
Yeah.
And this ties into integrity, right? Epictetus talked about that being crucial.
Hugely important. For Epictetus, integrity, which included concepts like eidos, meaning respect or a sense of shame preventing bad behavior, and pistos, meaning trustworthiness or faithfulness, wasn't just a nice to have, it was essential for a healthy volition.
Why essential?
He argued we're naturally equipped for things like justice, cooperation, kindness. These are part of our rational social nature. When you betray that through anger or fear or selfishness, when you lose your integrity, you're fundamentally harming yourself. You're damaging that core faculty, your volition. So practicing integrity isn't just about being good. It's about self-preservation, protecting the one thing that's truly yours. No external event can force you to lose your integrity. Only you can choose to give it away.
So wrapping this all up, this deep dive really shows Stoicism offering this incredibly coherent, practical system for tackling chronic anxiety. It's about this fundamental shift away from obsessing over externals and the future.
And turning that focus inward onto your judgments, your choices, your actions, right here in the present moment.
Yeah, using that discipline of assent to challenge fears, the dichotomy of control to focus your energy on your effort, not the outcome, and that constant self-reflection to stay on track, it really does seem designed to build mental resilience.
It shows you how much power you actually retain, even when things feel out of control externally. It reclaims that internal locus of control.
Now, to really bring it home, there's one more big Stoic idea we need to touch on, which informs their ultimate perspective on acceptance, their view of the universe, of fate.
Right. This can be a challenging one for modern ears. The Stoics generally saw the cosmos, nature, or God. They use various terms as this single, rational, interconnected organism, and everything that happens within it is governed by a chain of cause and effect, by universal determinism, fate.
Okay, if everything is predetermined by this cosmic chain of events, where does that leave our free will, our volition that we just spent so much time talking about?
Ah, that's the paradox, isn't it? Their answer is pretty mind-bending. True freedom, they argued, isn't found in trying to fight against this inevitable causal chain that's futile, like trying to stop the tide, and a huge source of anxiety.
So freedom isn't defying fate.
No. Freedom is found in understanding the rational necessity of events, accepting your place within that cosmic order, and willingly aligning your own will with it. It's about wanting what actually happens.
That sounds a lot like surrender. How is that freedom?
They saw it as the highest exercise of your rational freedom. Because you are a rational part of this rational universe, your most rational act is to consent to its overall plan, to consciously choose to desire what fate brings. Epictetus put it so powerfully, the road that leads to freedom and the only release from enslavement is to be able to say wholeheartedly, lead me, Zeus and you, fate, wherever you have ordained for me.
Wow. So acceptance isn't passive resignation. It's an active, rational choice to embrace reality as it is. Because fighting it is irrational and causes suffering, it completely undermines the anxiety that says things shouldn't be this way.
Exactly. The Stoic path offers freedom not by changing the uncontrollable world, but by mastering your inner world, your judgments, desires, and actions to align with reality, focusing all your energy on acting with virtue within whatever circumstances you find yourself.
So the final thought to leave everyone with, building on all this, if anxiety fundamentally comes from judging external events as bad and railing against the way things are, what might change for you right now if you could genuinely, deeply accept that whatever is happening is simply what's happening, part of that unfolding chain, and couldn't actually have been otherwise?
That acceptance is the bedrock of Stoic tranquility.
Definitely something profound to think about. Thanks for exploring this with us on the Deep Dive.